Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Nights. This is Kevin. Tonight, we have a collection of stories from King Arthur. In the dimly remembered epoch, where legend and truth were indistinguishable, the lands of Britain lay fragmented, each piece a chessboard of power, mystery, and impending conflict. Here, King Uther Pendragon, a figure both revered and feared, held sway over the tumultuous realm. His rule was a fortress amidst the swirling mists of war and dark prophecies, a beacon of strength in an era where uncertainty lurked like a shadow in every corner. Within the imposing stone battlements of Pendragon's stronghold, perched defiantly against the backdrop of a brooding sky, the air was thick with anticipation and whispered secrets. It was in this fortress that Uther Pendragon's dominion was bolstered by the allegiance of two extraordinary figures, whose influence and prowess resonated throughout the kingdom. Merlin the Wise, a sage whose name evoked both reverence and mystery, stood as the sovereign's most trusted advisor. Far more than a mere wielder of magic, Merlin was a master of the arcane arts, a custodian of knowledge that spanned the breadth of time and space. His presence was a confluence of wisdom and mystery, his foresight into the unfolding of future events as unnerving as it was invaluable. His counsel was sought after like a guiding star in the darkest of nights. Alongside Merlin, Sir Ulfius, the epitome of chivalry and martial prowess, served as the steadfast protector of the realm, adorned in battle-worn armour that told of silent stories of valour and sacrifice. Sir Ulfius's blade was not merely a weapon, but a symbol of the enduring spirit of those who stand guard over their land and people. His courage and skill in combat were legendary, his name echoing as a byword for bravery across the war-ravaged expanses of ancient Britain. King Uther Pendragon's wife, the gentle Igraine, had two daughters from another marriage. One of the daughters, Morgana Le Fay, was a famous witch. Soon, Igraine had a baby boy, and when Merlin came to meet this child, he stood over the baby's cradle and shut his eyes. "Lord," he told Uther Pendragon, "I am sorry to tell you that I see bad things in the future. You will soon become sick with a fever and die, and your kingdom will fall into great confusion. And this child's life will be in great danger from enemies that will try to take what is rightfully his. I beg you, let my myself and Ulfius take the baby away. We will hide him in a safe place until he is grown." Uther Pendragon had great faith both in Merlin's advice and in the gifts he thought his son would someday bring to this world. So he accepted Merlin's arrangement. As foretold, the king succumbed to the merciless grip of his affliction, his demise heralding an era of darkness. The land, once unified under the banner of Pendragon, fractured into 1,000 shards of ambition and deceit. Lesser kings rose like spectres in the night, their claims to the throne as fleeting and fragile as the shadows. Knights and barons, stripped of honour and virtue, prowled the lands, their intentions as dark as the cloaks that enshrouded them. And for 18 harrowing years, the land mourned, its sorrow as palpable as the chill of the unyielding winter. In these darkest of times, the Archbishop of Canterbury sought the counsel of Merlin. His plea, born from the depths of despair, was a clarion call for salvation. Merlin, whose eyes held the secrets of the ages, once again peered into the abyss of the future. His words, infused with a solemn promise, spoke of a king, born under Uther Pendragon's bloodline, whose wisdom and valour would eclipse even that of the legendary sovereign himself. Yet, the path to the throne was ensnared in riddles and intrigue. The Archbishop, perplexed by the enigmatic nature of Merlin's prophecy, sought clarity amidst the fog of uncertainty. It was then that Merlin, with a glimmer of mischief in his eyes, unveiled his grand design, a spectacle of destiny that would irrevocably alter the course of history. With a flourish of his hands, Merlin conjured a vision of majestic grandeur. A colossal stone emerged from the ether, marble, its surface smooth and inscrutable. Upon this foundation of eternity, an anvil of unyielding steel materialized. It was into this anvil that Merlin thrust a sword of unparalleled craftsmanship. The blade, shimmering with an ethereal glow, bore an inscription in golden letters, a decree that sealed the fate of a kingdom. Whoever shall put this sword out from the anvil shall be the rightful king of Britain. The proclamation of this celestial challenge sent ripples through the land. From the farthest reaches of the kingdom, figures of renown and ambition converged upon London, their hearts alight with the fire of aspiration. The city, a mosaic of life and colour, swelled with the influx of nobles and commoners alike, each drawn by the allure of destiny. As the day of reckoning dawned, the Archbishop, his heart bowed by the spectacle before him, confided in Merlin his optimism. Yet, the sorcerer, wise to the unpredictable nature of fate, hinted at a revelation that would transcend the expectations of even the most astute. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of the heavens and the anticipatory breath of the earth, the saga of power, destiny, and the unyielding spirit of a kingdom unfolded, a tale as timeless as the stars themselves. Under the vast canopy of a sky cloaked in banners and flags, the illustrious Sir Ector Bonmaison, a paragon of chivalry and valour, ventured into the heart of London. Accompanying him were his sons, Sir Kay, a knight whose mettle and courage were the subject of minstrel songs, and Arthur, a youth of merely 18 summers, whose destiny was yet a whispered secret in the winds of time. Though but an esquire at arms, serving in the shadow of his brother, there was an unspoken promise in Arthur's gaze, a silent harbinger of greatness yet unveiled. With them, they brought the trappings of their noble house, a cavalcade that spoke of their prestige, tents of emerald silk, emblazoned with the proud crest of their lineage, billowed in the gentle breeze. Upon their arrival at the tournament grounds, a spectacle of unparalleled grandeur unfolded before their eyes. A sea of nobility had converged, a dazzling mosaic of kings, dukes, and their resplendent courts. Amidst this congregation, over 20,000 lords and ladies lent their presence, their myriad of banners and pennants weaving a tapestry so dense that the very sky seemed but a distant memory. In the midst of this kaleidoscope, the Archbishop of Canterbury beheld the scene with a knowing smile. Before him was set to unfurl an event of mythic proportions, a confluence of destiny and desire, where the valorous would vie not only for the honour of extracting the sword from the anvil, but also to showcase their prowess in the contests preceding the fateful Christmas Day. Sir Kay, a figure of noble bearing, was deemed worthy to partake in the martial dance of the tournament. Young Arthur, his heart swelling with pride for his brother, bore the family standard onto the field, his eyes alight with the fervour of the moment. As the moment of reckoning dawned, the multitudes converged upon the field, their collective presence a living fortress of anticipation and awe. At the Archbishop's behest, the air was rent with the clarion call of a herald's trumpet, signalling the commencement of a ballet of steel and valour. Knights, adorned in the sun-kissed armour of their order, emerged like titans from the gates of destiny, their presence commanding the very earth to bear witness. The ground shuddered under the relentless onslaught of war steeds, their riders locked in a dance as old as time itself. When the dust of the first encounter settled, the field lay adorned with the shattered remnants of combat. As the crowd drew a collective breath, their spirits entwined with the fates unfolding before them, the stage was set anew. Sir Kay, his prowess undiminished, stood ready to embrace the next chapter of the contest. This time, the whisper of drawn swords would tell the tale. In this melee of flashing steel, Sir Kay's blade sang a song of defiance, his skill on display in a storm of clashing wills. Yet, in the heat of his triumph, a shadow loomed, a formidable adversary, Balamorginus, whose might was whispered in the hushed tones of respect and dread. In the tempest of their encounter, steel met steel with a force that echoed through the marrow of the earth. Sir Kay, emboldened by his previous victories, delivered a blow of such ferocity that it seemed the very heavens might take pause. But fate is a capricious weaver. As Balamorgius reeled, his senses a whirlwind of disarray, Sir Kay's triumph faltered upon the cruel realization that his sword lay in ruins, a fractured remnant of his once indomitable will. "Arthur," Sir Kay cried, "quick, rush to our father's tent and get me another sword." Arthur ran as quickly as he could, but when he arrived at the tent, he found no one and no weapons there. Suddenly, he remembered a certain sword that he had seen pushed into an anvil nearby. Surely, he thought, that sword would suit his brother's purposes very well. With the guardians of this sacred relic drawn away by the spectacle of the tournament, destiny lay unguarded, its secret ripe for the taking. Arthur ascended towards the stone, his hands, guided by a fate yet unknown, grasped the hilt of destiny. With a breath, a whisper really, the sword yielded to his call, slipping from its stone sheath, as if it had been waiting for this very moment. Covered in his cloak, Arthur made his way back to the field. In his hands he bore not just a sword, but the dawn of a saga that would echo through the ages. As Sir Kay beheld the legendary sword, a profound stillness enveloped him, as if a sorcerer's spell had petrified him where he stood. His gaze, locked upon the gleaming blade, bore an expression of utter disbelief. When his voice finally emerged, it was a fragmented whisper. Where did you find this sword?" Arthur, unmarred by the shadows of deceit that clung to his brother, relayed the tale of his innocent endeavour, oblivious to the treacherous tide that was about to turn. Circe, ensnared by ambition's whisper, conceived a plot. He resolved to claim the glory of the sword's retrieval as his own, ensnaring the unsuspecting Arthur in a tapestry of silence and deceit. "Tell no one," he urged, his words a venomous shroud, cloaking the purity of Arthur's truth. Yet, the gravity of his feigned triumph was a secret too burdensome for silence. "Fetch our father," he commanded Arthur, casting him as the unwitting herald of his grand charade. Sir Ector, upon his arrival, was met with a visage that spoke volumes. A son, pale as the ghostly ash, eyes alight with a feverish glow of dread and deceit. Sir Ector's gaze fell upon the sword. "How did you get this?" he asked his son. Sir Kay stalled. "I broke my original sword, and then got this one instead." "My son," Ector exclaimed, "if you drew this sword out from the anvil, then you are the rightful king of Britain. But if you indeed drew the sword out, you should just as easily be able to push it back in. You will need to draw it out again, with witnesses." Sir Kay was troubled. Who could push a sword into a solid block of iron, he wondered. That would be a miracle. But if his brother, who was nothing special, could pull it out, then surely he, who felt himself to be much more special, could push it back in and pull it back out. When back at the anvil, which was still unguarded, Sir Kay unwrapped the sword from a cloak. He set its point upon the anvil's iron and pushed it back in with all his strength, but to no avail. After a few minutes, and after he had turned almost purple from effort, he gave up. "Father," he confessed, "no man may perform this miracle." "Could I try?" Arthur asked. His father gave him a look. "By what right?" said Ector. Arthur steeled himself. "By the right that I drew the sword out in the first place for my brother," Arthur said. He was not bragging, only stating a fact. He was still innocent, you see, with no understanding of the contest or its meaning. He did not know why his father looked at him so strangely now. "Are you angry with me?" he asked. Sir Ector told his younger son that he wasn't angry, and asked his older son Sir Kay to hand the sword over to his younger brother. Both father and eldest son watched as Arthur hopped upon the marble block and easily pushed the sword back into the stone. Then he pulled it out and pushed it in once again, performing the miracle twice. Sir Ector gasped and kneeled. He clasped his hands together as though praying. "Father," Arthur cried, dropping the sword and running over to him. "I am not your father," Sir Ector said, and Arthur's face fell. Sir Kay's face had fallen too, but his at the thought that his brother instead of him might actually be king. Sir Ector cleared his throat and began to tell a story. The story had started 18 years ago, he explained. The wizard Merlin and the knight Ulfius had brought him a baby. They had not told him what baby it was, only that he must name that child Arthur and raise him as if he were his own. And this he had done. Sir Ector had never guessed who Arthur's father might be, he said. But today it seemed quite clear. Surely no other baby but Uther Pendragon's could have performed such a miracle. Arthur must be the true king. "Why are you crying, my child?" he asked Arthur. "I'm crying because I feel as though I have lost you, lost my father," Arthur replied. "And because I would rather have you as my father than be king of Britain." It was then, at that moment, as if by magic, two men appeared. The wizard Merlin and the knight Ulfius themselves. "I have seen all that has happened here today in the surface of my looking glass," Merlin explained. "I have been waiting for this moment for 18 long years." He looked at Arthur in the eyes, taking his hand in his own. Merlin told Arthur what his future held in store for him. "You, Arthur, will be the greatest and most famous king who has ever lived," he said. You will have many excellent knights gathered around you. The world will talk of your deeds and adventures until the very end of time. Arthur, will you promise me something? Sir Ector asked the boy, suddenly, who was no longer his son. When you are King of Britain, will you give your brother Kay a position in your kingdom? Of course I will, Arthur repeated. But only if you will be my father forever. Arthur sealed this exchange of promises with a kiss upon his father's forehead and also upon both cheeks. Both men would keep their promises in the future. Merlin then turned to Arthur and asked, "Would you be so kind to put the sword back in the stone? For tomorrow we shall show the world who is the rightful king." As dawn broke on the morning, the air was electric with anticipation. The city, swollen with throngs of onlookers, bore witness to a spectacle poised at the precipice of history. The contest of the sword, a challenge enshrouded in mystery and magic, was set to commence. A grand platform encircled the marble stone, its surface a silent testament to destiny, while a resplendent throne awaited the Archbishop, a beacon of authority amidst the sea of eager faces. The rules of the contest were clear. Only those of noble birth and rightful claim were to attempt the feat in this inaugural round. 19 kings and 16 dukes stepped forward, each brimming with confidence and royal bearing, sought to claim the sword, and with it the kingdom. Yet, one by one, they faltered, their efforts futile against the unyielding enigma of the anvil. Frustration and humiliation settled over the contenders, their failure a silent chorus of disbelief. Accusations flew around like arrows. Merlin has beguiled us all, the defeated nobles proclaimed, their voices a tempest of outrage and wounded pride. They implored the Archbishop to disregard the sorcerer's ruse and appoint a king from among their esteemed ranks. The Archbishop, standing at the crossroads of doubt and faith, hesitated. His belief in Merlin's integrity held him in thrall. "We shall wait," he declared. But just then, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Merlin and Ulfius approached. "Who are these that approach with Merlin and Ulfius?" the multitude whispered, curiosity alight in their eyes. Sir Ector, Sir Kay, and Arthur, figures unheralded, yet marked with an unspoken significance, drew near. Merlin, with a gravitas that stilled the air, presented Arthur to the Archbishop. "This boy comes with the right of blood, the true son of Uther Pendragon," Merlin proclaimed, his words unravelling the tapestry of secrets that had cloaked Arthur's lineage. The crowd, a living entity of awe, gasped at the narrative unfurled. The mystery of Uther Pendragon's heir, long lost to the annals of time, was laid bare before their eyes as Merlin and Sir Ector corroborated this tale. The Archbishop, now a vessel of destiny, granted Arthur the chance to prove his claim. With the world as his witness, Arthur approached the sword, his touch guided by fate and bloodline, coaxed the blade from its iron prison once again. The metal glided free. Arthur, overcome with the joy of his triumphant revelation, brandished the sword aloft, its gleam a beacon of hope and change. The crowd erupted, a cacophony of joy and disbelief that seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. Arthur, his heart alight with the realization of destiny, performed a miracle thrice, each extraction a seal upon his claim to the throne. Off to the side, Sir Ector and Sir Kay grappled with a torrent of emotion. The boy they had known, a son and brother, had transcended the realm of their shared history, stepping into the mantle of a king. Yet, in the midst of the clamour and throngs of clamouring for his attention, Arthur sought out the familiar faces of Ector and Sir Kay. Their hands clasped in his, their cheeks graced by his kisses. Arthur bridged the chasm between the past and future, a gesture of unity and gratitude that resonated louder than the cheers around them. As the echoes of the day's revelations faded, Merlin watched, a knowing glimmer in his eye. His wish, a silent invocation cast upon the winds of time, was that all who heard this tale would find inspiration in Arthur's journey. For in the heart of every dreamer lies a sword, waiting to be freed from the anvil of doubt, a testament to the enduring power of faith, courage, and the relentless pursuit of destiny. But of course, things in life are rarely that simple, and this story has no exceptions. Arthur did not immediately become king. While many were happy finally to have peace in the troubled land, others still refused to accept the outcome. Instead, they demanded that Arthur go through further trials. For the sake of peace, the Archbishop agreed. He ordered a second sword challenge, where the entire process was repeated again. Then there was a third challenge, and a fourth. And after the fourth trial, most people were not only convinced, but by then loved Arthur completely. Finally, the Archbishop made it official, and with Merlin's help and good advice, Arthur built a great and powerful kingdom called Camelot. It was a realm that would be remembered through the ages. Camelot rose from the foundations of peace and prosperity. It was a realm shaped by the visions of its king. As tranquility blossomed across the land, the radiance of Arthur's reign would attract souls of valour and virtue. These individuals, knights of noble intent, were drawn to Camelot, their spirits alight with a desire to partake in the glory and chivalry that the court of Arthur promised. They became known as the Knights of the Round Table, each a beacon of the ideals that Camelot upheld. And their stories, interwoven with the fabric of Arthur's realm, are tales of valour, honour, and the eternal quest for glory. Narratives that shall unfurl in the fullness of time, etching themselves into the annals of legend and lore. In the age-old realm of ancient Britain, enveloped by the mystic veils of legend and the silent whispers of forgotten deities, stood a radiant beacon of enlightenment and hope amidst the encroaching shadows of an untamed world. This was Camelot, the illustrious citadel of King Arthur and his esteemed knights of the Round Table, emerging as a fortress of chivalry, justice, and honour in an era overwhelmed by turmoil and discord. With its storied walls, the realm's most valiant and righteous warriors convened, their souls bound by the lofty principles of the Round Table. Their blades were forever unsheathed in the service of protecting the defenseless and extinguishing the forces of malevolence, embodying the highest ideals of knighthood and gallantry. Amid the pantheon of legendary knights, Sir Gawain stood out, not just for his valour, but his striking appearance, which mirrored the noble spirit within. The nephew of the Grand King Arthur, he was a figure of imposing stature, with broad shoulders that bore the weight of his responsibilities gracefully. His hair, as golden as the dawns that graced Camelot's spires, fell in waves around a face marked by a steadfast gaze and a jaw set in determination. His eyes, a deep green, reflected the verdant lands he vowed to protect and sparkled with a wisdom and kindness that underscored his every deed. Gawain's armour was a testament to his status and skill. Ornately crafted and inlaid with symbols of the ancient and mystical, each piece telling tales of battles won and oaths kept. It gleamed not just from meticulous care, but from the inner light of his honour and purity. At his side hung a sword, not merely a weapon, but a symbol of his commitment to justice and protection. This blade, forged in the fires of righteousness, had tasted the darkness of many battles, yet it shone brightly, as untarnished as Gawain's vow to stand as a bulwark against the encroaching shadows that threatened to cast Britain into perpetual night. Yet, within the resplendent halls of Camelot, adorned with gleaming tapestries and the glow of torchlight, shadows crept, and hidden perils bided their time, eager to challenge the courage of the noblest champions. On a particularly frigid winter's eve, while the court indulged in the joyous celebration and festive warmth of the Christmas feast, an unforeseen guest emerged, piercing the tranquility of the enchanted domain. This stranger, cloaked in mystery and bearing the weight of untold intentions, arrived as the laughter echoed and the firelight danced, setting the stage for a tale of valour and trial that would etch itself into the annals of legend. The majestic doors of the great hall swung open with a thunderous crash, heralding the entrance of a figure, an imposing spectacle, draped entirely in verdant green, from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet. This colossal being, a titan among men, loomed over the assembly, his stature dwarfing even the most formidable of the knights. His eyes, alight with a spectral gleam, pierced through the revelry, casting a chill that threaded its way through the hearts of all the onlookers. And clasped within his grasp was a branch of holly, its dark, lush leaves whispering tales of ancient shadowed groves, while his other hand wielded a formidable battle axe. The weapon's blade, sharpened to the deadly precision of a whisper-thin edge, glinted ominously in the flickering torchlight. I come seeking the bravest and boldest of King Arthur's knights, boomed the voice of the Green Knight, his declaration echoing through the hall with a force that vibrated the timbered rafters overhead. Who among you possesses the courage to face my challenge and demonstrate your valor? The assembled knights, cloaked in the prestige and honour of the Round Table, turned their gaze towards their sovereign, their expressions etched with a mix of apprehension and awe. Yet, King Arthur, the epitome of wisdom and justice, ascended from his regal seat, his demeanour composed, his gaze unwavering as he met the eyes of the verdant intruder. Before any among my fellowship ventures to accept your gauntlet, Arthur responded, his tone imbued with the calm authority of a seasoned monarch. We would hear the terms of this test. Speak without guile, Sir Knight, that we may ascertain the true measure of your proposition. The Green Knight's lips twisted into a grin, both mocking and sinister, as he unfolded the terms of his eerie proposition. A mere trifle, a jest for the Yuletide, he proclaimed, his voice laden with scorn. Let one among you deliver unto me a single stroke with my own axe. In a year's time, that very champion shall seek me at the Green Chapel, there to receive an identical stroke in exchange. A wave of disquiet swept through the knights, their unease palpable in the air. They were no strangers to the clash of battle, to the exchange of blows born of conflict and enmity. Yet, the notion of striking a pact that entailed willingly submitting to the edge of a foe's weapon struck them as a grave folly, a venture into unknown pearls. Amidst this brewing storm of doubt and deliberation, Sir Gawain rose, his spirit aflame with valour and his commitment to honour steadfast. Laying his hand upon the sword that had served as his companion in many a noble deed, he stepped forth from the ranks. I shall rise to this challenge, he announced, his declaration resounding with firm resolve. I am Sir Gawain, of Arthur's esteemed Round Table, and no creature, be it a man of green or otherwise, shall sway my heart with fear. The Green Knight's gaze sparkled with malevolent delight as he extended his massive axe to Gawain, the instrument chilling and weighty in the young knight's hold. With the resolve steeling his heart, Gawain adjusted his grip. The gravity of his impending act pressing down upon him like the hand of fate. And in one fluid motion, he swung the axe, its blade slicing through the air and into the Green Knight's neck. Severing bone with a gruesome resonance that echoed through the hall. An audible gasp of horror swept through the onlookers as the Green Knight's head plummeted to the cold flagstones. A gush of unearthly green blood marring the floor. Yet, as a collective shudder passed through the crowd, the knight's body remained eerily upright. A spectacle that drew a mixture of fascination and revulsion. Then, in a turn of events that sent waves of dread rippling through the assembly, the decapitated head began to speak, its voice a bubbling echo from beyond. "Your blow was true, Sir Gawain," the head intoned, its tone a chilling reminder of the pact sealed. "Bear in mind your vow. A year hence, you must find me at the Green Chapel and present yourself to my axe, as I have stood before you this eve." With these words lingering in the charged silence, the Green Knight's torso stooped, retrieving its head with an unsettling grace. Then, with measured steps that resonated against the stone, he departed the hall, leaving behind a veil of stunned quiet, as the reality of Gawain's bold commitment began to sink into the hearts of all present. As the wheel of the year spun by, weaving through the tapestry of seasons, the echo of that haunting night remained steadfast in Gawain's mind. The Green Knight's challenge loomed ominously, a spectre of dread that shadowed every moment, growing ever more oppressive as the day of reckoning neared. Resigned to the inescapable path laid before him, Sir Gawain was engulfed by a solemn resolve. With a heart burdened by the weight of impending fate, he clad himself in his armour, each piece a cold reflection of the dim winter dawn. The metal, polished to a mute shine, seemed to whisper of the grave task ahead. He offered his farewells to the brethren of the Round Table, to King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, and to the nobleman whose grace had always been a beacon in the darkest of times. within him, a quiet acceptance took root. The painful acknowledgement that these partings might herald the end of all he held dear. Mounting his steed, Gawain set forth from the gates of Camelot. The chill wind tugging at his cloak, the ground beneath them hard and unforgiving with frost. Each step away from the castle felt like a further burden upon his spirit. Yet, his determination remained unshaken. His promise was his bond, an oath that he would uphold at any cost. Guided by honour and the unyielding force of his vow, Gawain ventured into the unknown, prepared to face whatever end his quest might bring. For days and nights uncounted, Gawain travelled through the wild lands of Britain, his path taking him over windswept moors and through tangled forests, past crumbling ruins and ancient standing stones that seemed to whisper of long forgotten secrets. He faced many dangers on his journey. Prowling wolves and hulking giants, treacherous bogs and icy rivers. But always he pressed on, his resolve unwavering. Upon the approach of year's end, and the deep chill of the winter solstice, Sir Gawain reached the threshold of a formidable castle, its walls aglow as though cast from the very lustre of the sun. Here, within these radiant battlements, he was embraced with the warmth of kinship by the castle's lord, a figure of noble grace and generous heart named Bertilac de Hautezar. "Welcome, Sir Gawain," greeted Lord Bertilac, his firm grasp a testament to a warrior's camaraderie. "The road has wearied you, no doubt. Stay your journey here, amongst friends. Let us indulge you in the mirth of feasting, for it is well known the path that lies ahead is fraught with peril and uncertainty." Compelled by the sincerity of Bertilac's invitation, Gawain found himself momentarily setting aside the looming spectre of his quest. The promise of respite and fellowship in the warm embrace of the castle's hall was just too sweet a solace to forsake. And so, in the span of 3 days, Gawain partook in a revelry that seemed to suspend time itself, his heart and laughter intertwining with those of Lord Bertilac and his glorious court. The Lord's wife, the enchanting Lady Bertilac, with her beauty that could eclipse the moon and charm that could sway the sternest heart, became a figure of fascination for Gawain. Her allure tested the mettle of his chivalry, tempting him to stray from the path of virtue. As the dawn of the fourth day painted the sky with hues of promise, Lord Bertilac, bound for the hunt, proposed a light-hearted accord. "Let us entertain a pact, Sir Gawain," he suggested, mischief dancing in his gaze. "The bounty of my hunt shall be yours, and in kind you shall grant me whatever fortune graces you under my roof." With the spirit of the festivities yet lingering like a sweet intoxication, Gawain consented to the pact, little foreseeing the complexities it would weave into the fabric of his stay. As the hours waned and Lady Bertilac sought his company, her gaze laden with unspoken desires, Gawain perceived the intricacies of the web in which he was ensnared. "Valiant Gawain," she entreated, her touch a whisper against his skin. "A knight of your stature must surely harbour tales of loves both lost and won. Would you not share with me the secrets that stir your heart?" In the face of temptation, Gawain held fast to the tenets of his knighthood, gently rebuffing her advances. "My lady," he responded, "I am but a humble servant of the Round Table, sworn to uphold the virtues of chivalry and fidelity. I must not, cannot, forsake the trust of your lord husband, nor the sacred oaths that bind me." Yet, Lady Bertilac's pursuit was relentless, her seductions a test of Gawain's resolve, leaving him to navigate the precarious balance between honour and desire, his spirit embattled by the duality of his duties and the depths of his temptation. On the third day, as he prepared to depart, Lady Bertilac came to him one last time, bearing a gift. "Take this, Sir Gawain," she said, pressing a girdle of green silk into his hands. "It is an enchanted token, woven with spells of protection. Wear it against your skin, and no blade nor blow shall have the power to harm you." Gawain hesitated, torn between his desire for the lady's favour and his sense of honour. But in the end, the thought of the Green Knight's axe and the doom that awaited him proved too much to bear. He accepted the girdle, draping it about his waist and concealing it beneath his armour, a talisman against the fate he feared. And so, with a heavy heart and a troubled mind, Gawain rode out from Lord Bertilac's castle, the green girdle hidden beneath his surcoat. He knew that by keeping the girdle and not presenting it to Lord Bertilac as part of their pact, he had betrayed his host's trust and his own honour. Yet, the fear of death was a powerful force, one that could sway even the bravest of knights. As he rode through the barren countryside, the wind howling about him like a legion of lost souls, Gawain's thoughts turned ever darker. He had been tested, as all knights must be, but he had been found wanting. The Green Knight's challenge had exposed the cracks in his armour, the weakness that lay beneath his shining facade of knightly virtue. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm him, Gawain clung to the hope that redemption might still be within his grasp. He had failed, yes, but he had not fallen. He had stumbled, but he had not surrendered. And so, with grim determination, he pressed on towards the Green Chapel and the fate that awaited him there. At last, as the sun sank low on the horizon, and the shadows lengthened into a cloak of darkness, Gawain came to the Green Chapel. It was an eerie place, a jagged wound in the earth that seemed to throb with an unholy energy. The very stones seemed to whisper of ancient evils and long-forgotten curses, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. And there, waiting in the shadows, stood the Green Knight. His emerald armour glinting in the fading light, his axe held loosely at his side. He grinned as Gawain approached, a smile that held no warmth or mirth. "Welcome, Sir Gawain," he said, his voice a rasping whisper that seemed to come from the very depths of the earth. I see you have not forgotten our bargain. Come, let us settle our debt. Gawain dismounted, his legs trembling beneath him as he faced his foe. He knew that he should be afraid, that he should beg for mercy or flee in terror. But something in him, some last shred of knightly pride, would not allow him to yield. And so, with a deep breath and a silent prayer, Gawain sank to his knees before the Green Knight. Baring his neck to the blade. He closed his eyes, waiting for the blow that would end his life and his shame. But the blow did not come. Instead, he felt the cold kiss of steel against his skin. A feather-light touch that traced the line of his throat without breaking the surface. Once, twice, thrice the axe descended, each time stopping just short of its mark, until at last Gawain opened his eyes in confusion. What game is this? He demanded, his voice rough with fear and anger. If you mean to kill me, then do it and be done. But do not mock me with false mercy. The Green Knight threw back his head and laughed, a sound that echoed through the chapel like the tolling of a funeral bell. "Ah, Gawain," he said, "you have proven yourself true in all things save one. You kept your word and came to face me, even though you knew it might mean your certain death. That takes a rare courage, and for that I commend you. But," he continued, his tone hardening, "you also betrayed the trust of your host and accepted a token meant to protect you from harm. That was a coward's choice, and it stains the honor you hold so dear. Gawain felt the weight of the Green Knight's words like a physical blow, and he bowed his head in shame. "You are right," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "I have failed in my duty as a knight, and I am not worthy of the title I bear. Do with me as you will, Green Knight, for now my life is forfeit." But the Green Knight merely shook his head, a strange smile playing about his lips. "Your life, Sir Gawain, is not mine to take," he said, "for I am not what I seem." And with those words, the Green Knight's form shimmered and changed, his emerald armor melting away to reveal the familiar face of Lord Bertilac. "I am the lord of the castle where you stayed," he said, "and the Green Knight was but a guise, a test of your mettle and your honor." Gawain stared at him in astonishment, his mind reeling with revelation. But why?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why put me through such a trial?" "Because, Sir Gawain," Lord Bertilac said, the world is a dark and dangerous place, and the Knights of the Round Table are the light that holds back the shadows. But even the brightest light can be dimmed by doubt and temptation. And it is only by facing our weaknesses that we can truly become strong. He reached out and clasped Gawain's shoulder, his grip firm but not unkind. "You have learned a valuable lesson here, my friend. Honor is not a shining armor that we don once and never remove. It is a choice we make, day by day, moment by moment, to be true to ourselves and to those we serve. It is a constant struggle, and one that we will not always win. But it is in the striving that we find our true worth. Gawain felt the truth of Lord Bertilac's words sink deep into his heart, and he knew that he would carry them with him for the rest of his days. He rose to his feet, the green girdle still wrapped about his waist, and bowed deeply to the man who had been his host and his foe. Thank you, my lord, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I will not forget the lesson you have taught me, nor the mercy you have shown. I will strive to be a better knight and a better man for having known you. And with that, Gawain mounted his horse, and he rode out from the green chapel. The weight of his shame and his newfound wisdom heavy upon his shoulders. He knew that he would never be the same, that the Gawain who had left Camelot would not be the same man who now returned. But he also knew that he was not alone. The knights of the Round Table, his brothers in arms, would stand with him, and together they would face the darkness that threatened to engulf their land. They would be the light in the shadows, the hope in the midst of despair. And though they might stumble and fall along the way, they would always rise again, stronger and truer than before. And so Gawain rode on, the green girdle fluttering in the wind, a symbol of his failure and his redemption. And he rode towards Camelot, towards his king, towards his fellow knights, towards the destiny that awaited him. And though the road ahead was long, and the dangers many, he knew that he would face them with courage and honor. For he was a knight of the Round Table, and that was a brotherhood that could never be broken. This is a tale of King Arthur, the legendary King of Britain, who ruled over the famous knights of the Round Table. It is also about Sir Gawain, the nephew of King Arthur, and the noblest of those who sat at the Round Table. It begins, as so many of these tales do, with a damsel in distress. It was said she came while the court was in Carlisle, on a day when the autumn mist hung low over the castle walls, and the knights were gathered in the great hall. Of course, they were sharing tales of their recent adventures as they usually would. The old fire crackled merrily in the enormous stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across the tapestries that adorned the walls. And it was then, in the midst of this peaceful scene, that the great oak doors burst open. They burst open with such a force that they struck the stone walls with a thunderous crash. Her hair was bedraggled, her clothes torn, and her eyes wild with grief. She stumbled into the hall, her bare feet leaving muddy prints on the polished stones, her breathing ragged, as though she had run for miles and miles without any rest. "Help me, King Arthur," she cried. "My husband has been stolen from me and enslaved by the wicked knight of Tarn. Though I fought him, see how my clothes are torn. There was nothing I could do. My husband is gone. And so I turn to you, great King. Great King, give him back to me. Slay the Knight of Tarn." The woman collapsed to her knees before the high table where King Arthur sat, his crown glinting in the firelight. Tears streamed down her dirt-stained cheeks as she stretched out her hands in supplication. When King Arthur heard this, he was shocked, but pleased at the same time. You see, the sight of the poor woman genuinely moved him, of course, but he secretly loved adventure and couldn't help but look forward to this new challenge. His eyes brightened with the familiar gleam that his knights knew well, the look that appeared whenever a particularly dangerous task presented itself. "Fear not, good woman," he declared. "No knight who enslaves the innocent shall escape the justice of Camelot." And so, the very same day, he set out on his horse. Despite the protests of his advisors, he went alone, armed only, it was said, with a spear, and with Excalibur, his magic sword. And as he went, he whistled, for you see, King Arthur had never known fear. Or if he had never shown it. But this time, something very strange happened. As he rode further and further into the wood, which became steadily darker and darker, that whistle died on his lips. The familiar sounds of civilization faded behind him, replaced by an unnatural silence that seemed to press against his ears like a heavy weight. His usually spirited horse began to shy and snort with nervousness. He passed a lake as black as blood on a moonless night, and his whole body shivered. The water's surface was perfectly still. Not even the faintest ripple disturbing its mirror-like surface. And yet, Arthur could swear he saw shapes moving in its depths. All the trees had lost their leaves. Their branches writhed like snakes in the wind, and ragged crows hung above them, laughing in the horrible way that crows do. King Arthur's teeth began to chatter. His magnificent warhorse, which had carried him fearlessly into countless battles, now trembled beneath him. At last, he saw the knight's castle. It was vast, wider at the top than at the bottom, with 2 dark windows high up and a solid black portcullis below. The very stones seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and strange phosphorescent moss clung to its walls. From a distance, you could have mistaken it for an enormous human skull. It was as much as King Arthur could do to point his horse towards the drawbridge. But when the portcullis opened, with a loud metallic creaking that seemed to echo from the very bowels of the earth, and the Knight of Tarn rode out, the last of his courage left him. The figure that emerged was clad in armor so black it seemed to swallow light itself. With a groan, he fell to the ground, almost fainting. The knight, invisible in his black armor, dismounted from his horse, walked over to where Arthur knelt. The king could not find the strength to look up. He heard the crunch of footsteps on gravel and the clink of armor. Then came the sound of metal scraping against metal as the knight drew out his sword. There was a minute's silence. It seemed to drag on for an hour. Finally came a voice, a cold voice, So, this is the great King Arthur, it said. Tell me, King, why should I not lop off your head while you grovel before me? You are the devil, King Arthur gasped. No, the knight laughed. My name is Groomer Sommarjour, and I am the servant of Queen Morgana le Fay, your sworn enemy. But see, the lady is here with me. With an effort, King Arthur raised his head, and there, standing beside the knight, was the woman who had sent him on the quest in the first place. But now, she was smiling malevolently at him. You see, Morgana had magically disguised herself, and even in his fear, King Arthur trembled with anger at how easily he had been deceived. Have pity on me, he cried, the words bitter on his tongue. For never before had the great king begged for mercy. Killing you now would be too easy, the knight replied. So, instead, I will send you on a quest. Swear to me that you will return here on your own exactly 1 year from now. But when you come back, you must answer me this question. What is it that women want most in the world? If you can give me the correct answer, I will spare your miserable life. But if you are wrong then, King Arthur, you will die. And your bones will decorate my castle walls. The knight laughed. The lady laughed. Then they moved away. The portcullis came crashing down, and King Arthur was left alone. The journey back to Camelot was the longest of Arthur's life. He had faced dragons and giants, but never Had he encountered anything that stripped away his courage so completely? The shame of it burned in his chest like a physical pain. It was sorcery, my lord. It must have been sorcery, Gawain cried when he heard this story. It must have been black magic. That was what caused your fear. That is what made you cry for pity. By your leave, I will ride out to the castle and... No, my dear Gawain. King Arthur stopped him. It is I have been sent on a quest. I am honor bound. What is it that women desire most in this world? I have a year to find out. Then I will come with you, Gawain said. Maybe together we'll have more luck. Arthur looked at his nephew with deep affection. Gawain was perhaps 25 years old, with golden hair and fair complexion that marked him as one of the handsomest knights at court. More than that, he possessed a noble heart and unwavering loyalty. So together, they left Carlisle, and they rode out across the country, stopping every woman they met in an attempt to find the answer to the knight's question. They spoke to queens and peasants. They spoke to nuns, merchants' wives. They spoke to young maidens and ancient grandmothers. But they soon found themselves with more answers than they knew what to do with. You see, some said that women desired mostly jewels and fine clothes, while others said a good husband and loving children. A wealthy merchant's wife insisted it was security and comfort, while a young nun declared it was spiritual fulfillment. Luxury, loyalty, immortality, independence. These were just some of the answers they received. There was one old lunatic who insisted that all women wanted strawberry jam. The answers ranged from the bizarre to the banal, but not one of them seemed entirely convincing. And so time passed quickly. A week turned into a month. Another month passed, then 2, then 6. The seasons changed around them as they travelled. From autumn into winter, from winter into spring, and finally into summer again. Soon King Arthur and Sir Gawain found themselves on the way back to the enchanted castle. They had a whole catalogue of answers in their saddlebags, but both knew in their hearts that they had failed. It was on the day before they were to part company, perhaps forever, that it is said that they met an old woman. You see, they had stopped in a clearing to rest their horses when Gawain saw her. She was sitting beside a stream, just reading a book. Gawain's first thought was that she was beautifully dressed, and she wore the finest materials. Her whole body was covered in jewels. But then she turned her head, and he realized that she was, without doubt, the ugliest woman he had ever seen. She really was incredibly ugly. Her 2 lips met several inches in front of her nose, and when she smiled, and seeing Gawain, she did indeed smile, her teeth stuck out, yellow and uneven. Her skin was the colour and texture of rice pudding, and her hair would have looked better on a camel. Her nose had been pushed into her face until it had almost disappeared, and she had such a bad squint. She seemed to be trying to look up her own nostrils. Finally, it must be said that she was horrendously fat. So fat, in fact, that her hands and feet appeared to sprout out of her body without the benefit of arms and legs. But she was a woman, and seeing her, King Arthur decided to have one last crack at the question. He approached her, bowing courteously. But before he could speak, she addressed him in a sort of weird, cackling voice. "I know the question you wish to ask," she screeched. "And I also know the answer. But I'll give it to you only on one condition." "And what is that condition?" King Arthur demanded. The horrible woman grinned at Gawain and ran a wet tongue over her lips. "That knight," she said. "How handsome! What lovely hair! What delicate blue eyes! I rather think I fancy having him as my husband. Yes, that is my condition. If you will give him to me in marriage, I will save your life." Of course, at this, Gawain went pale. He was indeed young and good-looking. All his friends expected him to come home one day with a beautiful wife. What indeed would they say if he were coupled with this monster? But even as these thoughts rushed into his mind, second, nobler thoughts prevailed. He had a duty. Yes, he had a duty to his uncle, and a duty to the king. "My lord," he said, "if this woman can save your life—" I can, the ugly woman crooned. "If she can save your life," he continued, "then gladly I will marry her." "My dear nephew," King Arthur cried, "I couldn't possibly let you do that." "Well, you cannot stop me," Gawain replied, and he fell to one knee. "My lady," he exclaimed, "I pledge you my word as a knight of the Round Table that I will marry you if you can save the king. Now, tell him what it is women desire most, and what you desire you will have." And so it was. The next morning, King Arthur rode alone, as he had promised, to the castle of Tarn. Once again, a sense of evil surrounded him, like some great darkness. However, this time, he was able to ride forward with confidence. So the answer he carried was a blazing beacon. For the second time, the great portcullis ground open, and the Black Knight rode out, his sword already unsheathed this time. "Well, King," he growled, "tell me the answer to my question." What is it that women desire most in this world? And so King Arthur replied, boldly and clearly, repeating exactly what the woman had said to him. "It is this," he said, "that they should have their will, and that they should rule over men." For a long moment, the Black Knight was silent. And then he dropped his sword, and to Arthur's astonishment, fell to his knees. You have answered correctly, sire," he said. And by doing so, you have broken the spell which that evil witch Morgana Le Fay had cast over me. She forced me to send you on your quest. I was her unwilling slave. But now her magic is ended. I beg you, sire. I beg you, let me come. Let me come and serve you at the round table. For beneath this foul black armor, I am but a good man, will but prove myself worthy of you. Then you are welcome, King Arthur said. And as he spoke, the dread castle of Tarn crackled and crumbled, and suddenly there was a rushing wind as the bricks and ironwork shimmered in the darkness. Then the sunlight broke through the clouds. The castle shattered, the ground beneath it heaving as if to be finally rid of it. A moment later, it had vanished, and once again the birds were singing. "Let us ride together," King Arthur said. And together they turned back to the court. But although the adventure had ended well for him, his heart was heavy. He had a wedding to attend, a nephew to see married. He would have given his kingdom for it to be otherwise. The marriage of Sir Gawain was an event that nobody would ever forget. It was said the preparations alone took a week, for despite the bride's unusual appearance, King Arthur was determined that his nephew should have a wedding worthy of his station. And the great hall was decorated with flowers and silk banners, and all the finest cooks labored to prepare a magnificent feast. And the ugly woman giggled during the service and ate so grotesquely at the feast afterwards that almost as much food went down her dress as into her mouth. She called King Arthur Warty and forgot everybody's names. Of course, this being the age of chivalry, everybody managed to be tremendously polite. When Sir Gawain's new wife got drunk and fell over, they rushed forward to help her up, as if she had merely stumbled. When she made impossibly rude jokes, they laughed and applauded. And they all congratulated Sir Gawain on his good fortune with as much sincerity as they could muster. Poor Gawain was the politest of all of them. Not once did he let on that he had married the ghastly woman because he had been forced to. He called her a lady and held her arm on the way to the table. When she emptied her wine goblet, he refilled it for her. But at the end of the evening, when he found himself alone in the bedchamber with his wife and watched her powdering her nose and all of her 3 chins, it all proved too much for him. He clutched his sword, he clutched his hair. Then he burst into tears. "What is it, my little plum?" the lady asked. "What has so upset you on your wedding night?" "Lady," Gawain replied, "you know full well what troubles me. You force me to be your husband. In truth, I would rather not." "And why not?" the lady demanded. "I cannot say." "Tell me." "Very well." Gawain took a deep breath. I do not want to hurt you, but you are old, ugly, and evidently of low birth. Forgive me. "But what's so wrong?" the woman gurgled. "With age comes wisdom and discretion. Are these not good things for a wife to possess? Maybe I am ugly, but if so, you will never need fear rivals while you are married to me. Is this not a good thing? Finally, you accuse me of being of low birth. Are you really such a snob, Gawain? Do you think that nobility comes just because you are born into a good family? Surely it depends on the character of a person, Can you not teach me to be noble like you? Gawain thought for a moment. Despite his innermost feelings, he could not help but agree that the old woman had a point. At the same time, he felt ashamed. Whatever he thought of her, she had saved the life of his uncle. He had behaved badly towards her. He had not behaved like a knight of the Round Table. "My lady," he said, "you are right in everything you say. I have spoken discourteously towards you, and I apologize. Then come to bed," she said. But even as she spoke, Gawain detected something different in her voice. And when he turned round, he saw to his amazement that she had changed. It was no fat and ugly woman that lay on his bed, but a young, beautiful girl, fair skin, soft, brown eyes. "Gawain," she said, smiling at him, "let me explain. Groma Somajor, or the Black Knight, as you knew him, is my brother. You see, both of us were enslaved by the wicked Queen Morgana Le Fay. I helped the king to release my brother from her spell, but only the kindness and understanding of a noble spirit could save me from my horrible enchantment. This is what you have given me, dear Gawain. And now, at last, you see me as I really am. I am your wife, if you will have me. But this time, the choice is really yours." Gawain gazed at her, utterly speechless. Then he took her hand in his own and held it close to his cheek. "My lady," he whispered, "I would be honored to be your husband. I love you, not just for your beauty, but for the wisdom you showed me when I needed it most." The next morning, the court was astounded to see what had happened. And so the king ordered a second wedding feast, so that everyone this time could really enjoy themselves. and it was said that Gawain and his lady lived happily together for many, many years, and although nobody ever told the story when either of them was present, for the fear of embarrassing them, I suppose, on many a winter's night, when the knights and their pages would gather round the crackling fire, they would once again hear the strange tale of the ugly